In 1971, normal university students with loving families and clean records were turned into sadistic torturers in just 6 days. Not for money, not by threats, but by something far more terrifying that is happening to you right now as you watch this video. The discovery I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes will forever change how you see the people around you, and especially how you see yourself. There is a psychological mechanism so powerful it can turn any good person into a monster, and science has proven that no one is immune to it. Not you, not me, not that person you admire most. The most disturbing part? This mechanism is being activated daily in our society, creating petty tyrants in offices, schools, families, and even in traffic. The name of this phenomenon is the Lucifer effect. And before you think this doesn't apply to you, I need to tell you a story that will make you question everything you believe about morality and human nature. A story that began with Philip Zimbardo observing something that kept him awake for weeks. Philip Zimbardo was a respected professor at Stanford when he decided to conduct a simple experiment on prison behavior. He selected 24 university students, all psychologically healthy, with no criminal records, from stable families. They were young people like you might know. They studied, dated, and had dreams for the future. On Sunday, August 14th, 1971, half of these young men were assigned as guards, the other half as prisoners. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. Zimbardo created a mock prison in the university's basement with real cells, uniforms, and basic rules. No physical violence was allowed. It was just a role-playing game, or so everyone thought. What happened in the first 24 hours shocked even Zimbardo. The guards, young men who had never shown aggressive tendencies, began to humiliate the prisoners in increasingly creative and cruel ways. They created degradation rituals, forced humiliating exercises, and developed a system of psychological punishments that would be the envy of professional torturers. But here's the most disturbing part. They weren't following orders. Nobody told them to do this. The cruelty emerged naturally, as if it had always been dormant within them, just waiting for the right opportunity to awaken. And the question Zimbardo couldn't answer was, if this can happen to normal Stanford students in just one day, what's stopping it from happening to you? On the second day, the situation escalated alarmingly. One of the prisoners, Douglas Corpy, began to show signs of a real mental breakdown. He screamed, cried, and begged to be released. The guards, instead of showing empathy, interpreted this as resistance and intensified the punishments. Christina Maslach, Zimbardo's girlfriend at the time, visited the experiment on the 5th day. She found Zimbardo completely absorbed in the role of prison superintendent, coldly analyzing data while young men were suffering just meters away. When she expressed horror at what she was witnessing, Zimbardo initially dismissed her, annoyed by the interference. It was only when she threatened to end their relationship that he realized he too had been transformed by the experiment. The objective researcher had become part of the oppressive system he created. In that moment, Zimbardo made the most difficult decision of his career, to end the experiment on the 6th day, 8 days ahead of schedule. But the story doesn't end there. In the following decades, Zimbardo discovered that what happened at Stanford was not an isolated case. It was a pattern that repeated itself in genocides, dictatorships, toxic corporations, and even in seemingly normal families. There was something in human nature that few scientists dared to study, but that explained some of the darkest chapters of our history. And the most disturbing discovery was yet to come, a discovery that would change our understanding of good and evil forever. Hannah Arendt, a philosopher who studied the trials of Nazi war criminals, was one of the first to identify what she called the banality of evil. She observed that most perpetrators of the Holocaust were not psychopaths or sadists, but ordinary people who simply followed orders and adapted to the system. Stanley Milgram, a contemporary of Zimbardo, proved this experimentally. In his studies on obedience, 65% of ordinary people administered potentially lethal shocks to strangers just because an authority figure said it was necessary for science. They weren't trained soldiers or criminals. They were office workers, housewives, teachers. But it was Solomon Asch who revealed the fundamental piece of the puzzle. In his experiments on conformity, he found that intelligent people would deny their own visual perception when faced with group pressure. If we can be manipulated into denying what our own eyes see, imagine what can be done with our moral convictions. Dr. Albert Bandura, a pioneer of social psychology, identified the specific mechanisms that allow this transformation. Moral disengagement, dehumanization of the victim, diffusion of responsibility, and cognitive restructuring. These are the psychological ingredients that turn good people into agents of evil. The most shocking part? Ancient traditions already knew these principles. Militaries have used similar techniques for centuries to turn civilians into soldiers capable of killing. Religious cults apply these same mechanisms to control followers. Corporations use them to create toxic cultures that make ethical employees commit fraud. The question that no expert can fully answer is there a line you would never cross? And if there is, are you absolutely sure where it lies? Here is where the story gets truly disturbing. Zimbardo identified that there are 7 specific steps that turn good people into agents of evil. These steps are applied daily in our society, often without us realizing it. The first step you've already experienced today, probably several times. The second is happening right now in millions of offices, schools, and homes around the world. The third is so subtle that even trained psychologists have difficulty identifying it when they are going through it. But there is something Zimbardo discovered decades after the original experiment, something he called the X factor, a variable that determines who resists the transformation and who succumbs completely. This discovery came from an unexpected place, studying heroes. In 2004, when the photos from Abu Ghraib prison shocked the world, showing American soldiers torturing Iraqi prisoners, Zimbardo was called as an expert witness at the trial. What he discovered there changed his perspective on the Lucifer effect forever. There was one soldier, Joe Darby, who refused to participate in the abuse and eventually exposed it, even knowing he would be considered a traitor by his colleagues. Why did Joe resist when so many others succumbed? The answer revealed a human capacity that can be developed, a psychological vaccine against the Lucifer effect. But before I reveal this transformative discovery, you need to understand why this is crucial for your personal life. Remember Philip Zimbardo observing the guards turn normal students into torturers? The truth is, you face smaller versions of the Stanford experiment every day. At work, when your team ridicules a colleague and you say nothing. At school, when you witness bullying and remain silent. In traffic, when the anonymity of your car unleashes your aggression. Understanding the Lucifer effect isn't just academic knowledge. It's a tool for psychological self-defense. When you recognize the 7 steps of moral transformation, you develop an almost supernatural ability to resist manipulation. You become immune to toxic bosses, abusive relationships, and extremist movements. More importantly, you develop what Zimbardo calls the heroic imagination, the ability to anticipate situations where you will be morally tested and prepare yourself to act correctly. Heroes aren't born heroes. They prepare for heroism. Douglas Corpy, the student who nearly had a mental breakdown in the experiment, later became a human rights consultant. He used his traumatic experience to help others recognize and resist oppressive systems. The pain of the transformation became his greatest strength. Christina Maslach, who had the courage to confront Zimbardo, went on to develop theories on burnout that have saved millions of workers from toxic environments. Her willingness to oppose authority when necessary changed lives around the world. The question is, when your turn comes to choose between conformity and courage, will you be prepared? Because that choice will come for all of us. The only question is whether we will be ready to recognize it.
There is an 8th step in the Lucifer effect that Zimbardo only discovered recently, a step so powerful it can completely reverse the moral transformation, even in the most extreme cases. He discovered it by studying people who committed atrocities but managed to genuinely redeem themselves. This 8th step contradicts everything we think we know about human nature and forgiveness. It suggests that the capacity for good is even more powerful than our tendency for evil, but only when activated correctly. The discovery came from an unexpected source: former members of extremist groups who not only abandoned violence, but became active agents of peace. They developed a psychological technique that could revolutionize how we deal with conflicts, both personal and global. But there is something even more intriguing. Zimbardo found evidence that some people are naturally immune to the Lucifer effect. Not because they are more moral, but because they possess a specific psychological trait that can be measured and potentially developed. This trait is present in less than 3% of the population, but its influence is disproportionate. These are the people who prevent genocides, expose corporate corruption, and keep hope alive in dark times. The question that will keep you awake tonight is, do you possess this trait? And if not, is it possible to develop it? In the next video, I will reveal not only the 8th step and the trait of the immune, but also a simple test you can take right now to discover your own resistance to the Lucifer effect. The result might surprise you.